Want to go far in business and in life? You can't do it alone. The secret is expanding your network of personal relationships, building friendships, connecting on an intimate level, away from the office, over a coffee or cocktail. Welcome to All In with the real Nate Payo. The show that asks what happens when you go all in and leverage the power of your network of personal relationships.
From author Donnie Bovine comes the book, How to Be a Success Champion, available on Amazon. After years of living other people's dreams, author Donnie Bovine decided to jump out on his own and start a business, thinking it would be easy. Instead, he had a rude awakening and quickly understood that he had spent 20 years being an employee and had no idea how to be a business owner. His business was tanking, and he was on the brink of losing everything when he decided to fight for business freedom. In this must-read and life-changing book, author Donnie Bovine shares with readers his story intermingled with lessons learned from his mistakes and his failures. In How to Be a Success Champion, you will find advice the author received from mentors and how he went from zero to a six-figure business. The author walks you through the steps of how to get out of your own way, how to play the game of business and win, find your strengths, how to network effectively, how to build a personal brand, how to create champions for your business, how to get great at sales, how to take complete ownership of you and your business. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Bovine, available on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback editions. Order your copy right now. It makes a great book for corporate events too. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Bovine, available on Amazon.
Hello. Welcome to the All In podcast with Nate Payo. Of course, I am your host, Nate Payo. Today, my guest is Angelo Ponzi. He's joining us with 25 years of experience in marketing and brand strategy. He works with small to middle market companies as their chief marketing officer, and he's good at defining market opportunities, developing competitive profiles, audience personas, brand realignment strategies, to strategic integrated marketing plans to help business compete in the ever-changing marketplace. The Ponzi Group focuses on three pillars for success: brand insights, brand, and plan to develop an effective and efficient programs for building enduring brands and sustainable growth. Angelo, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. So we were kind of chatting a little bit before we started recording about what's going on, and you're talking about networking. And then you kind of said, hey, the stuff I was talking about, it's not, we're not going out and meeting people in person anymore because of the changing world. And you also talk about, you help businesses, that succeed in this ever-changing marketplace. So, that's definitely something that's relevant right now, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's a fundamental, in my opinion, pivotal shift that companies and people have to make in the way they're dealing with not only their business lives, but also their personal lives. It's too easy to get disconnected. And so, I think over this last 2 months, and it's really been almost 2 months now, I've talked to a lot of my clients as well as my friends about taking time every day to just reach out and talk to one or two people. Forget the emails, forget the texting, actually reach out and talk, whether it's through Zoom or whether it's just on the phone. 15 minutes, doesn't take much out of your day, but they remember it. So when this thing first started, I literally made a list of all the people that I wanted to keep in touch with. Mm-hmm. And that list has continued to grow. But I'm cycling back over and over and over again just to say, okay, we talked 3 weeks ago, whatever, just want to check in, make sure things are well. Or if I'm in a lot of networking groups that are now online. And I've heard some people that are really struggling. I mean, we're all, have faced challenges during this, but are really, really, really struggling. And so I've put some extra emphasis on making sure I'm staying in touch, making sure that other people in our network understand what's going on so we can see how we can help as a community as opposed to just one individual. And I think a lot of this networking is about building a community of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So because we can't, now go to all these groups that I normally go to, finding new ways to stay in touch, I think, is really important.
Yeah, it was like interesting. So this is at the time of recording, it's May 20th, in the middle of the COVID-19 stay-at-home orders. But like when at first like people got home, they're like, this is kind of like fun, like it's a little break from work, and we're all sitting on the couch watching Netflix, and then a week passed, and it's, hey, this is a little bit scarier. When are we going back to work? And we're accommodating it. But people, like for me, like a lot of the people I would network with in real life were kind of on social media, and we were making jokes, and we were kind of like I felt like, especially on LinkedIn, like there's a lot of people like getting on LinkedIn and communicating and having fun. But I think like as the time progressed, people were like, I don't like their habits of continually to reach out and connect with people in a social way kind of, I think, slipped a little bit. They were just like, hey, I'm not like, especially for people that maybe weren't working as much from home, like they'd get into their daily habits and not reach out and connect with clients or business people or friends and stuff like that. But as like this extended, like I had this thought of like, imagine if this never lifted and this was just like, you just stayed in your home and you just, talked in person to your friends and your immediate family. Like, would you figure out a way to do the things you want to do? Or would you just sit there waiting for the doors to open and go back to normal? Or do you say, hey, look, I got to find a new way? And so to me, I started thinking like, hey, if you have a desire to, forge friendships and stuff like that, you have to be the one that reaches out, makes that connection, makes that effort to drive it. Otherwise, I think it's very easy for friendships and relationships to get cold, in the sense of like, hey, next thing you know, it's been a year and a half since you've chatted with somebody, and you're like, gosh, now it's weird to call them up out of the blue and say, hey, how are you doing? Because you forgot to check in and say hi. So I think it's definitely important to make those connections and just treat it as like, hey, what if this was never any different? Like, what's the new way of doing it?
Well, you made an interesting point, and I believe that us as individuals have to always be the one that takes control. If we wait around and assume, like, I haven't heard from my friends, I haven't heard from my client, why aren't they calling me? Well, they could be on the other side saying, hey, I haven't heard from Angelo, why hasn't he called me? And so I've known people that have said, you know what, I haven't heard from so-and-so in 30 days. I said, have you reached out to them? Well, no, I reached out last time. It's third time. That's BS, right? If you need to take charge, if you want to keep that connection going, you just don't know. You can't assume that because you're sitting here, on Zoom or in your house, that they're doing the same. You don't know what kind of issues they're having or troubles they're having. And for them to think about, I'm going to, reach out to Angelo this morning. I don't know what's going on with them unless I communicate. And so whatever that aspect is, there's always a way to, for me anyway, believe that you should just take that extra step. When you meet somebody at a networking event, for example, and you go home and say, hey, I met this great potential lead last night and blah, 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 or nice person I want to go golf with, and they haven't heard from them. Well, again, whose responsibility is that? Take the responsibility, be the first one. That's how you're going to nurture it, because especially as we get older, it's not like when we were kids, you walk into a playground and there's 20 people and they don't know you, and 5 minutes later you've got 20 best friends. It's really hard now to break into groups. It's hard to, as adults, to find not only the business relationships but personal relationships. So I'm a firm believer and highly recommend that, tuck it in, bite the bullet and be the one that takes charge in reaching out.
I love that you say, hey, you got to reach out anyways. It's not like, well, it's not my turn, it's their turn. Like, to me, that's like a keeping score friendship. And it's like, it's stupid. Now I'm not saying like, hey, if I reach out to you and you don't respond, and I reach out to you again and you don't respond, it's
Well,
always
that's
my
different.
responsibility to keep
Yeah.
bugging you. That's just, sometimes like annoying, and like the relationship's not there, and that's to let it go. But if you have a relationship that's reciprocal, like if I reach out to you and you respond back, but you're not always the one leading the initial contact, like who cares? Just reach out and see that. Not everybody is going to make the first effort. And I find that if you want to have a strong network of friends, a strong network of connections, like you're the one, make it your priority. If it's a priority for you, you'll make the effort to reach out and connect with people. And if you always are waiting for like, hey, I had a great conversation with this person, like when are we going to hang out again? Like I want to go grab coffee with them. If you don't make the effort, like just assume that they're not going to, even though everybody's got good intentions, they all said they're going to, like just say, hey, they're definitely not going to, or they're going to get busy. And 2 days turns into 2 weeks, 2 weeks turns into 2 months, 2 months turns into 2 years. And now it's like, hey, whatever happened to that really cool person I wanted to have coffee with? Just go 2 days later. Hey, I'm putting this on the books. Whether or not it's like, 2 or 3 days out or 2 or 3 months out, just go, hey, let's do it. Let's get on the books. Let's get on the calendar, because then you don't forget. And then as the date approaches, you can you have a reason to contact them. Hey, it's getting close. I'm super excited to see you in a few weeks. Like just check in and saying hi. Like, yeah, that's cool. They're always reaching out. And that's really, I think,
I'm sorry, with technology, right? There's no reason you just can't plug in, call Angelo on May 27th. It's really easy. It's just constant reminders that my kids sometimes drive me crazy. They'll say, "Isn't mom's birthday coming up?" It's like, oh my God, how do you not have that in your calendar? Push annual and put it on the date, and it's done, and you'll always be reminded. So there's so many simple tools now that people can use to remind themselves about things. I use digital, but I still have paper everywhere. I like writing notes, to-do lists every day, but a lot of people don't. But there's no excuse for not having a checklist, and frankly, whether it's personal things or business things.
Yeah, very cool. So that kind of like leads into my next question, which is this idea around luck. And do you believe that people are lucky or can be lucky? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would jokingly say over the years, if it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. Um, and so no, I don't believe in just luck. I think you have to create the opportunities. You have to push yourself out there, and you kind of make things positive. If luck equates to something that positive happened, you have to help create that. Now, if I walk down and buy a lotto ticket and I win tomorrow, yeah, that is pure luck, right? Because there's billions of statistics. But on an average day, I can't wait to be lucky if someone calls me out of the clear blue sky and says, I'm going to give you $1 million contract. Could it happen? Yeah, that would be just pure luck. If I didn't know them, they didn't know me, they randomly selected me. But that doesn't happen every day, right? So if you want to create more business for yourself, build the relationships that we're talking about, that just isn't luck. It's hard work. It's about being passionate and consistent and persistent in what you're doing to help make those things happen for yourself. I when this coronavirus started, I'm in marketing. I'm a chief marketing officer. A lot of my clients immediately, first thing it always goes in any kind of stuff, they start chopping marketing budgets like crazy. So it had an impact on my business. Now, to your earlier statement, I could have said, heck, I'm going to go binge watch on Ozarks on Netflix for the next 2 or 3 weeks until they come to their senses and they come back and start giving me money again. That would have been, idiotic. So for me, I sat down and said, okay, I need to make things happen. I can't just be lucky, if you will, that somebody's just going to call me and hand me a new business. I have to go make it happen. Now, there's nurturing. There's a lot of things. I get referrals, but none of that just comes from just being pure luck. I truly believe you have to put forth the effort to make positive things happen for yourself. 1 foot forward every day. I think it was Bon Jovi. Quit looking in the rearview mirror unless you're planning on going backwards. I don't know if that was him or not, but it's true that this back to what could have happened, what should have happened. It didn't happen. and you always have to look forward. You always have to go, again, 1 foot forward and stay as positive as possible. I know it's really difficult, especially during these times, to stay positive, but it's really important. I actually got a book from somebody, and it literally is called Stay Positive. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Stay Positive. And it's very inspirational. And I read it, and I've actually bought more of these books, and I've now handed them out to clients and friends, um, because there's always that positivity, and I believe that kind of positivity leads to greener pastures, if you will.
Yeah, it does. And what you talked about is like, putting in that effort, especially in these times when it's maybe not all positive. It's hard to say positive, but like necessity, or they say necessity is the mother of invention, and so anytime that there's like, crisis, like you say, okay, there's a bunch of bad stuff happening. I'm going to go hide in the bomb shelter until it comes out. I'm going to dust off and go back to normal. Well, there's other people that are going, hey, I'm going to keep making progress. I'm going to keep making momentum. What are the obstacles stopping me from doing what I need to do? And how can I overcome them? Are these tools available? And then people say, well, no, they're not. They're not available, or they weren't readily available. Like Zoom, for example. I think, it's not brand new that we've been able to do video for conversations through like FaceTime, or Zoom was here before, or, Facebook Live, all that stuff. But there was like this mass adoption of just people forced into like, you need to use Zoom technology and do virtual meetings, and you can't do a personal meeting. So all of a sudden, all these people that were like super opposed to it started adopting it. And there's going to be, I guess, inventions that come out of this that we don't know about today. And in 3 to 5 years, you're just going to go, wow, that person got lucky. They had this idea. And you're like, no, they didn't get lucky. They worked hard, and they were there, and they were open to ideas, and they had, I guess, some foresight to just say, hey, there's going to be opportunities and tragedy, and I'm going to take and solve some of these problems. And then, it's going to look like luck, but it's definitely going to be a lot of hard work and tenacity that was there when other people were maybe putting their heads in the sand.
Yeah, there's, there is, it's funny that it's not funny, but there is opportunity. And so when, for example, when my clients were pulling back on their budgets, and other people that I know, I started doing a lot of investigation, and I looked at history. I looked at the Spanish flu pandemic and the impact on the market then, and there was no Zoom, so at that point in time. But then I looked at the other recessions, and basically my goal was to write an article about what I thought companies should be doing to maximize their opportunities when we start to come out of this. And so if you think about it, and what I counsel is, you need to look at your competition, for example. If they just had a big layoff, did they lay off one of their star people? Is there an opportunity now to pick up, is that luck that, I'm on the market now all of a sudden? Is that luck that you can pick me up? Is it luck that they can't deliver on their product, or their distribution channels are in trouble, and now they've created an opportunity for you to expand? Or, as we've seen with a lot of the pivots and what people are doing, they're now taking their businesses that might be kind of struggling, and now they're focused on medical, right? They're focused on whether it's masks or antiviral lotions and things like that. So it really is these kinds of troubling times, and I'm not an opportunist, but as a business person, you have to look at where can you pivot and succeed and take advantage. And to your point of innovation, I mean, there's so many things that I believe when we come out of this, like having these kinds of conversations on over Zoom as opposed to in person, that's going to continue on. I think businesses are going to realize that, do I really need a $750 a square foot high-rise office building to put Ponzi in it when he can sit at home? He's already proved that he's productive. So why would I bring him back? Maybe I just have him come to the office once a week. He does some hoteling, he plugs in, and he's here for the day and he leaves. Right. So there's going to be a lot of changes. I truly believe a lot of changes that are going to become norm when we start coming out of this.
I'd agree
creating
that
opportunity.
that retail, or not the retail, the commercial like office space, that one's going to be interesting because you go and you say, oh, all right, well, you know, if I want to attract the best talent, I need to be in this locale, and I got to pay top dollar rent. So let's say like you're going to be in downtown LA or downtown, Irvine, and you're going to pay at least high dollar rents because that's where all the talent lives. They live by the coast. They want to live here. And you say, okay, so it's going to work two ways, I think, is you're going to have the people that can't afford to live at the coast that are commuting, and they're living in a place where it's the right ratio of affordability and commute time. And now they say, crap, I don't have to commute to work. So, I don't even have to live within 1,000 miles of where I work. So I could go move to a location that gives me exactly what I want. Maybe it's like living on a farm in Texas, or it's living, so somewhere else up in the mountains or something like that. Or then there's also the businesses, I think, will look at it and they'll say, you know what? Our office doesn't need to be here. Like if you're saying, hey, I got to be in Silicon Valley to attract the top talent of tech engineers. No, you don't. Like now you could locate in this place with lower rents, and then the people that say, hey, I want to live in the Bay Area because that's where I love living, they're not going to say, well, I'm going to quit if you move your offices to the middle of Kansas. I can telecommute, and then the people that are not able to live in the Bay Area because it's too expensive and they're commuting 2 hours a day, or they're 5 in a studio apartment, they're going to say, hey, you know what, we can have some space. So I think it's going to be interesting what comes out of this, and there'll be a definite shift in the way that we work. And then there's going to be people that are going to look at those, I guess, challenges and opportunities and come up with solutions that just make productivity a bit better, for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So when you're working with the companies you work with, you talk about 3 strategic pillars: insights, brand, and plan.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So part of my background, I'm a fractional chief marketing officer. And fractional means I'm hired on a interim basis, a part-time basis. And so the assignments might be shorter. But as a strategic marketer, I get into really understanding the nuances of the marketplace, the nuances of the competition, of product, consumer behavior, those kinds of things, as opposed to the creative side where I'm worried about the tactical stuff. I'm very on the strategic. So insights, really what that is I'm looking for some kind of nugget of information or nuances from gathering using market research, whether it's quantitative or qualitative. And qualitative is more like we're doing today, right? We're having a conversation, versus focus groups versus quantitative, which is all statistical and you can do projections off it. So gathering that kind of information, and then secondary research, which is stuff that already exists in the marketplace, might be a study that you buy or internal data, and utilizing that and looking for opportunities to leverage into a strategic approach to the marketing strategies. So the brand then becomes, so that's insights, then brand becomes more about how do we position, what's our messaging, how do we differentiate ourselves from the competition. What is the competition doing? Are there opportunities to grow business? Is our business pretty much saturating the market or the vertical market that we're in, and now we need to expand into new vertical markets? Can we do that with our existing products? Do we need to create new products? Does that create challenges from new competitors that we don't face now? And if it is, then we need to go figure out who they are. And then from there, and gathering all that, moving into planning. So now we have information from the industry. We have all these insights about what's going on. We now have a strategy, and now we apply that strategy to an actual plan. And whether that's a business plan, a marketing plan, communications plan, operational plan. So I also look at kind of the market in a holistic standpoint. So it isn't just about marketing. It isn't just about sales. If we're successful, then I'm going to impact operations. I'm going to impact manufacturing, inventory, accounting, HR. If we're not successful, I'm going to impact those businesses as well, right? So I walk into one of my clients in the industrial space. We're successful. Let's say they get $1 million order, and we're all cheering and popping the champagne. And then manufacturing comes in and says, "We can't meet those deadlines. We don't have the capacity. We don't have the people." Right? So we have to understand the kind of the the ebbs and flows of the entire organization when building these plans. And so then I look out, where do we want to be in 5 years, for example? So how are we going to get there? How can we get there naturally through retention or new acquisitions? And then based on that, there's kind of the tactical execution. That's actually the fourth bucket, if you will. And then when I had my advertising agency, of course, I would execute that. Now I partner up with people to help execute, or I work with internal teams as far as the tactical execution of whatever the strategies happen to be.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's an interesting take. Is like a lot of times people go out there and they say, "Hey, we're going to lead with, I guess, the brand and the storytelling," but they don't figure out the insights and how they're going to execute the plan afterwards. They just lead with like, "Hey, we want to go out there and sell this cool story and this imagery." But I think there's a lot to be said that marketing isn't advertising. Advertising is a part of marketing, and marketing starts with the numbers, like who are we going for, what are their problems, how many people can we serve, that type of stuff, and you identify that. So when somebody comes to you and they're looking to utilize your company to provide this marketing solution, there's this idea around being all in for me that has a lot to do with like your efforts you put into what you're about to accomplish. Maybe it's an idea, maybe it's an outcome. So how would you describe the words all in to you with regards to being all in on an idea?
Sure. Well, it's for me, it's about total immersion. As a fractional, which basically I'm a part-time guy, right? I may go into my client's offices once a week, maybe twice, maybe 2 half days. So I'm not the guy that's sitting there every day. I'm not the guy that's interfacing with the employees all the time. And so there's a certain effort that I don't want to be perceived as the consultant who, comes in, blows in, throws a lot of ideas out and says, go implement them and walk out the door. Mm-hmm. So for me, when I engage, and I even have it in my agreements that even though I'm a fractional, I'm going to act as a full-time employee. I am, part of my deal is I have to be considered in the C-suite. I have to be able to have an opinion, and so for me, all in is total immersion to learn and do the best job possible for my clients, based on the fact that I'm taking a fraction of my time, but giving them 100% of it. That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. It's the right, I think, attitude to have. Like, you could just, here's a bunch of ideas. Yeah. Good luck. Maybe they work, maybe they don't. Maybe you'll figure out how to implement them. Maybe you won't. Maybe you start off with this idea. Hey, let me know how it works. And it's like it evolves, and you need some guidance to help steer the company in that direction to work out. Now you talked about being a fractional consultant / employee. Like, so not everybody is in that market for a fractional chief marketing officer. So how would you describe your ideal clients and who they are and the industries they serve, and what they look and smell and taste like?
Sure. So first of all, I like to say I'm industry agnostic. I have literally worked with semiconductor equipment manufacturers, so like $1 million machines, and I've also worked with ice cream and everything in between. So I have both a B2B and B2C background. So I've worked with software companies, I've worked with tech companies, finance companies, industrial Christmas companies on the B2B side, but I've also worked with, like I said, ice cream, alcoholic beverages, and some food products, restaurants, consumer finance stuff. But to me, it's about the skill set of marketing and not necessarily the industry. And probably the areas there's a couple areas I don't play in, and partially because I just don't have an interest, and that's in pharmaceuticals and things like that. I've just never had an interest in it, so I never really bothered to even chase any of that. But I think because of my, I consider myself a strategic marketer, and with my research backgrounds, I know how to get information. I know how to get up to speed very quickly and how to utilize that information. So that allowed me to play in a lot of different arenas. The ideal customer for me right now is I say I do deal with startups, I'm very choosy. In my previous history, I would take them left and right and do trade out for stock options and things like that. And frankly, after all these years, then none of them ever worked out. But I still help. I'm actually a mentor at UCI to in the startup group over there in innovation to help young folks come in and ask me questions and give them advice and guidance and hopefully some of them take it, some of them don't. But I'm in there. So I do work with startups, but I try to stay at least at $3 million to about $75 million, maybe 100, depending on the organization and their makeup and what they're trying to accomplish. And I do like B2B probably a little more than B2C, but I do like both. They're different animals, depending on what they are. But you're still dealing with either a buyer or you're dealing with a consumer like us. And so that's, and the other part, it's going to sound very silly, but they have to believe in marketing. I actually had a phone call. I worked on a distracted driving application years back. And I got a call about 2 years ago from somebody who said, "Hey, I've got a company. I want the CEO to talk to you. We're developing this distracted driving app with your background. I think you'd really help." I said, "Great. I'm happy to talk to them." So he calls me and says, "I got to tell you right off before we start, I don't really believe in marketing, and so convince me why I should hire you." And I said, "No, I'm not. Why do I want to put myself through that every day? If you don't believe in what marketing can do for you, forget me, what marketing can do for you, why would I want to spend every day trying to convince you that what I was doing was right?" So again, it sounds silly, but there has to be an emphasis and a belief that there's that old adage that sales and marketing are always at odds against each other, and I don't work that way. I believe they're synergistic, that we're building the brand, paving the way, opening the doors, gathering whatever the leads are, for sales to make an easier sale, right? If they go knock on a door and people say, "I have no idea what your company is about or who you are," then that's a failure of marketing, not a failure of sales, right? And so I think, and I've got some strategic partners that I work with. I mean, we're really, looking at sales and marketing as being the growth engine. So again, my ideal customer, 3 million to 75, either B2B, B2C. And I have to be speaking to the CEO, the president, the owner, right? Not another CMO, because that can hire me. And depending on the level of marketing, like one of my clients has 7 marketing people, and the leader is a director of marketing, but they're very tactically driven. I find that in a lot of cases when I'm brought in, the company is very tactical, right? They got the website going, they've got the the literature going, and they're doing their social media posts, but there's no strategy, there's no storytelling, if you will. If you used that word before, I'll grab on that, about the business. There's a lot of chest pounding that, "Aren't we great? We're wonderful, and you're gonna love working with us." Well, that's not really what you want to be telling them. You want to be going out and talking about how their customers are going to benefit because they use your products, right? So you have to really think about an understanding. And that's the other thing I find really surprising. And again, sounds silly, but how many businesses truly do not understand their customer? They don't talk to them. They rely on the salespeople, and again, not disparaging salespeople, to deliver insights on what's going on in the marketplace. Well, there's a bias in there already, right? Because they're making a sale, they're trying to get their commission. And so the information coming back, and that's just research in general, that potentially inputs from lots of different people are all going to have different biases. If you and I went out and talked to 2 different customers today, well, the way I approach it, the way you approach it's different, right? So we already built in bias on the way we ask questions, the way we do things. And if that information isn't being filtered and analyzed, then there's potential issues. So surprisingly, a lot of businesses just think they know their customers. I had a software client about 2 years ago that I did an outreach to all their clients, and I heard 2 things. If there's a problem, I forget the lady's name, our customer service lady is right there. She fixes it, right, Johnny on the spot. Well, what about upper management? When's the last time you've talked to them? Oh, year and a half, maybe. We haven't talked to them in a long time. Well, and then you go back to management and they say, "Oh no, they love us." my attitude was, they don't even know you. How can they love you? They might love your product, but they don't know you. And you're just creating an opportunity for somebody to step in, build a relationship. As this whole thing started off about networking, right? Somebody else builds a relationship with them. And now the first blip, they're going to turn to the person that they trust and they like versus somebody they don't know.
There is a lot to be said about that personal relationship through the chain, especially like, hey, your direct counterpart you're dealing with, but also, hey, if I have a pressing concern, can I call the owner of the company? They'll take my call, and they know who I am. I know who they are, and that means a lot. And I think another thing you touched on was, two things: is the people that say, hey, I don't believe in marketing. I would say, you don't understand. Like, you're thinking, I don't like being marketed to, or I don't like advertising, because it's a manipulation. It's a perceived manipulation in my head to convince me to do something I might not have otherwise done. But that's not what marketing is. Marketing is, hey, if you're in business, you have a problem you're solving, and you need to reach a certain number of people, because not everybody's a yes. So you figure out how many people you need to talk to, that funnels it down to how many people are going to use your product and find your service and stuff like that. And so it's really, it's a way of knowing the numbers of who you're talking to. You're talking to the right people, and you're trying to get that gap between the number of people you talk to and the number of people that are your yeses a little lower. But you're right too about this idea of perception of, hey, we think we're this company, but we don't talk to our customers. So you have a perception, right, what you think you are. Okay, I'm this company and I do X, Y, Z, and these are my strong suits. But if your customers don't perceive you that way, then you're not. Like, even if you say you are, you're not. It's what do people perceive you to be that you are. So you need to understand, are you telling the right story? Do people know the story you want to be telling? Or are you telling a story but you're not executing on it? Like, if you say, hey, we're family owned and we're all about relationships, but like you said, you only talk to the customer service person, you don't know everybody through the chain.
Well, and that's an interesting point, right? Because you're telling a story, and you could be telling your story, but is your story really relevant? Right? Just because, when I started working actually with the software company I was talking about, one of their points of differentiation, the guy said, we've been in business 30 years. So when I said, give me your list of your top competitors, and I looked at them and I went back and said, well, they've been in business 25. One guy was in 30 years, 35 years. So to say you've been in business 30 years as a point of differentiation doesn't really work, because there's a longevity to you, but it's not something that someone's going to say, well, they've been around years, therefore they're trustworthy, they're really good, but so are these other people now. And so by digging in and understanding with the customer what's relevant to them, this 30 years in business, does that motivate me to make the decision to even want to see you? Or is it a support point after you get through all the other stuff, right? So I'm looking for a new software developer. So what am I looking for? Is it price? We know price is always going to play, but I want quality. I want case studies. I want to make sure that they maybe worked in my industry before, that they can do the things that I need to do, and turnaround time. So I helped one of my clients develop some software last year. And my client wasn't so much about the price. It was about how quickly they could get it done to get back into the marketplace, because during that time, everything shut down. Because the current program just couldn't scale, and it was causing people issues. And so we literally shut the company down for 90 days and no sales. We still went out and marketed and built awareness and did all the, the market stuff, but we couldn't sell anything because it wasn't working. And so my goal as the marketing guy, what the software was going to do and what we needed was different from what the owner wanted it to do. So we had all these different things, and understanding the software company had to meet those needs. Did the fact that they were in business for 30 years give us justification? Yes. Did the fact that they had other case studies that they could prove that they had been successful in doing that? Yes. But when it boiled down to it, could they execute and show us they could do what we needed to do? And so by just saying, hey, we're in the business 30 years, there's a process I go through. It's called VRIO, which is whether is your product or service valuable to your clients? Is it rare, right? Is it something that differentiates in the market? Somebody else doesn't have it. And then the I is it easy to imitate? So I might have this great whiz bang widget, but it's not proprietary. I don't have a patent on it. And frankly, I could guesstimate in 6 months, you could duplicate it.
Mm-hmm.
You could duplicate that. So that creates differentiation strategies, maybe how long in the market I can own something that's leverageable. And I look at branding as, what's ownable, leverageable, and sustainable for your company. So there's all these, again, back to the insights, brand, and planning. There's all these little nuances and helping to understand how to differentiate. When I have companies go through this process, inevitably, one of their key differentiators is we got great people. Well, time out. You're telling me your competitors don't have great people? And what's your great person compared to their great person? So we're going to start looking at resumes and do it. It's too easy. And if you've got Angelo Ponzi and he's your differentiator on your thing, well, now your competitor comes over and steals me for whatever reason. You just lost your point of differentiation. So really getting companies to open up and understand that it isn't about just tactics. This is about telling the story, getting it on social media, on the websites. You still got to get people there. You still have to have a relevancy. And if you're not relevant, then it's a great story, but it doesn't mean anything to me because you're not meeting the needs that I have. So anyway.
Excellent. Well, there's definitely a ton of value in the knowledge you're sharing with us, and I'm sure you can make a big impact in companies. So somebody wants to reach out to you, they just fit the bill of what you described as your ideal client. Where should they get in contact with you? Where should they go to find you?
Sure. So 2 places, really. LinkedIn is the best. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. And then on my website, which is theponzigroup.com. And on there, I have videos, I have blogs, I have free ebooks, one on storytelling, another on establishing a competitive intelligence program. And I'm about ready to put up there one on a framework that I created called Apples, and a way for businesses to do a lot of the things we're talking about and really dig down into their data. And then I do a lot of blogging and article writing as well. As a matter of fact, I just published one on I think I mentioned it earlier, looking at the history of recessions and the earlier pandemic and how it impacted businesses, and giving guidance on how they can come out of this recession. The other one I just recently published is called Tips for Working at Home from a Sweatpants Pro. And I actually was in my sweatpants while I was writing that article. And so those are, again, for me, I'm trying to give advice. I was told years and years and years ago when I first started in marketing, the mentor that I have was like, yeah, what can I do for you? How can I pay you back? And he said, someday you'll be in a situation to help others. That's how you pay me back. And so I always look at that. That's why I'm a mentor, and I do things and do webinars and, give away a lot of free conversations and data, because I think it's important to, as the tides rise, all boats are, whatever that saying is, right? So we're all in this together, and we've heard this saying over and over and over again. But regardless of the coronavirus, we all are in this together in our daily lives, and working together and building a more, harmonious world for everybody. And I think the last is on my website as well. And I am a podcaster, and I like you, and I have a show called Business Growth Cafe. And it is truly about business advice. Mm-hmm. So my guests, I always spin it to make sure that they're giving advice and guidance for my listeners as well. A wide variety of folks on there, and I just hit my 91st show.
Well, congratulations there.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's as you know, they're a lot of work, a lot of effort, because it isn't just the conversation; it's the editing, it's the getting the guests. And so I commend you for what you're doing. This is great. I love this conversation, and so congrats to you and your continued success.
Well, thank you. I think, we kind of started getting into the good details and the wisdom towards the end of the show, but you share a lot of the same beliefs that I do, like the VRIO. That's one that I always like to share with people. And this idea of the mentor, the giving back, is like, hey, there's been people in my career that I always felt like looked out for me. Maybe they're not necessarily a mentor, but maybe an advocate, that they promoted you, right. Not promoted you, like physically promoted you, but they would say, hey, this guy does a great job. Like they're always, kind of like your cheerleader in the corner, telling you what to do, giving you career advice. And as you grow in your career, you want to look for other people that you can do the same to, because I think you're right. All tides rise with the tide, or all ships rise with the tide. Like, there's somebody helping you up. You should be grabbing a few people and taking them up with you, giving them guidance, introducing them to the right people, setting an example, just telling them little bits and pieces, even to the simple stuff of like, people I used to take me to lunch, like my boss would buy me lunch, like, you like, hey, let me buy, you bought last time. It's like, no, your turn will come and you'll buy, your reports lunch in the future. Like, that's just how it goes. Like, you want to, and then when my reports say, hey, let me get lunch. Nope. There'll come a time when you'll be buying somebody else lunch. So you'll pay it back down the road. So I love that stuff. So great. So I encourage everybody to go check out theponzigroup.com and the other links you talk about that will all be listed in the show notes. Subscribe to the podcast. I think, the ideas you surround yourself with, they influence your behavior, and then your behavior takes you in the outcomes you want to do. So when you're surrounded by good advice, I think you're going to create your own luck. Back to the full circle of our story here. Check it out. Had a great conversation with you, and hoping to stay connected, and we'll not wait 2 years to retouch base.
Yeah, let's make sure we do that. Yeah, you have to stay connected, and you have to be reaching out. And I'm glad. I know we're connected now on LinkedIn, and I certainly appreciate that. And again, I try to stay active and push things out that people can benefit from. It's a lot of effort. That article I was talking about with the lessons learned, I mean, that was ended up being like a 2,000 word article, and it took probably 5, 6, 7 hours to actually put it together. And my wife was sitting there saying, can you really need to be spending all your time doing that? And I said, I have this idea that I really think people will benefit from this. Did I get anything for it? No. Did I earn any money for it? No. But I feel good that I was able to impart some wisdom. I hope wisdom.
Sometimes I find like those ideas are just like floating in your head, and they're distracting. They're distracting you, and you just like, I have to get this out, because if I don't, it's just going to keep circling in my head, and like you like get it out, you put it out, and it's like, okay, I got it out. It's out of my system. It's there. They don't have to like be constantly thinking about it. So very cool. Loved our conversation, and look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Me too. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Make sure to visit our website, therealnatepeo.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, so you'll never miss an episode of All In. While you're at it, if you found value, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if simply tell 2 friends about the show. Looking to connect? You can find Nate Peo on LinkedIn or Instagram.